Before we begin the account portal demo, I do want to say something. The majority of this walkthrough will be geared more for group admins and contact center managers, but I think it's important for everyone, including agents and supervisors, to pay close attention to the upcoming segment. Even though your role may not be an admin, it is important for you to understand all of the parts and inner workings of the contact center solution. It is quite common in today's contact center environments for agents to be promoted to supervisors and supervisors to be promoted to contact center managers or admins. You may not think you will use this knowledge now, but please pay attention because there's a good chance you will need it down the road. Alright, moving along. As with other group-related services like auto attendance, hunt groups, and audio conferencing bridges, before a business can use contact center services, it must first be set up and configured by a group administrator or contact center manager. So let's open a browser and go to the URL or address of the account portal and then enter in administrative username and password credentials and then click Login. Inside the account portal, you will notice that Contact Center has its very own tab, which is completely separate from the Group tab where other group services and features are configured. This is due to the overall complexity of Contact Center and its sophisticated configuration. This tab will only appear if at least one Contact Center queue has been ordered. As with other group services, Contact Center must be ordered through sales or customer service before it shows up in the account portal. Once the order completes, admins or contact center managers will see the Contact Center tab. Clicking on the tab will direct the user to the Contact Center page. From here you can see a list of queues on the account which shows the name and queue type as well as the 10-digit telephone number and or internal extension associated with each. Also visible on the Contact Center page is the Global Contact Center Settings section, which we will come back to and cover later in the tutorial, but back up to the queue list. So, before any call can be routed to, then processed and distributed by a queue, admins must run through an initial setup procedure for each, which occurs on the Edit page, accessible by clicking the Edit link. In the interest of time, I will not cover every setting you see here in detail, but I will touch on the main ones that are required to get the queue to a point where additional configuration can occur so it can begin its automatic call distribution functions. For a detailed explanation of all contact center settings, please reference the administration guide. For a queue's initial setup, please ensure that the queue has a unique name and its calling line ID first and last names are specified. These fields are required. Also, make sure the time zone is correct and the appropriate group policy is set. The group policy essentially defines how the queue is going to distribute calls to agents. For example, regular distributes incoming calls by hunting through agents in the order they appear in the list, starting from the top of the list each call. Circular is very similar to regular, but instead of starting at the top of the list, circular distribution selects the agent who follows the agent who received the previous call. And simultaneous simply alerts all agents in the list at the same time. The first agent to answer the call handles the call. We'll just go ahead and select, we'll go with circular. Next, we need to set the queue length, or the maximum number of calls that may be on hold in the queue at any given time. Default is 0, by the way. For this demo, we will set the value to 5 and skip down to the agent settings section. Now, the available settings that appear in this section will vary based on queue type. For instance, we are currently viewing a premium queue profile. Premium queues support all 6 agent settings that you see listed here. If we were viewing a standard queue, we would not see the bottom setting automatically answer calls after waiting X seconds because the standard queue type does not support that setting. And if we were looking at a basic queue profile, we would only see the top 2. Allow agents to join contact centers and allow call waiting on agents. And this is because basic queues do not support wrap-up, which is the amount of time an agent has between calls before the next call is presented. And basic queues also do not support agent ACD states. That's why the bottom 4 settings here would not be visible. Okay, before we click save, let's scroll to the top and make sure that the queue is set to active or in service, and then we can click save. And now we are back at the contact center page where we can continue with our initial configuration. With that done, now we need to assign agents to our queue, as well as supervisors. Plus, we will set up the basic, advanced, and routing policy queue configurations. So let's click Configure to go to the queue configuration page. And as I mentioned before, we are viewing a premium queue. And since it is the most robust queue type available in Contact Center, it has more configuration settings than standard and basic. I'll briefly highlight all of the features on this page, and I'll also specify which queues support what features for your reference. Starting with agents. The Agents feature allows admins and Contact Center managers to assign agents to specific queues. So looking at the list, it appears as though we have one seat that has a Premium Contact Center agent add-on license assigned. We will move Sales Rep 1 over to the assigned list, making he or she available to join queues. Okay, and the agent feature is available for all queue types, including basic, standard, and premium. So let's click save. Contact Center status and statistics is only available for standard and premium queues. Admins can specify up to 2 unique email addresses which will receive basic reports regarding the queue statistics. They can also view the queue status to see if any calls are in the queue and which agents are staffing the queue at the present time. Queue and agent statistics generate snapshot stats about the queue and its agents. Next, supervisors. Only available in premium and standard queues, the supervisor feature allows admins and Contact Center managers to assign supervisors to specific queues and assign various agents to the supervisor to which they have permission to manage. Just about any user can be a supervisor, but we will select our seat labeled CC Supervisor and move them over to the assigned supervisors list. Next, we need to associate an agent with the supervisor. So let's click the Agent tab, and we see the agent we just assigned a minute ago to the queue. Go ahead and move them over as the assigned agent, and then we'll click Save. Later on, I will show you how all of this ties in when we walk through the supervisor and agent account portal piece of the tutorial. The last feature in the basic section of queue configuration is announcements. Supported by all queue types, announcements are system default or custom recorded audio messages that are played when callers enter the queue, are holding in the queue, and even when holding for specified times and long periods. Entrance messages, estimated wait messages, comfort messages, and on hold messages greatly improve the overall satisfaction of the caller. Moving down into the advanced configuration section and to the distinctive ring feature. The distinctive ring policy provides a distinctive ring to an agent when the call is routed from a queue and presented to them. Distinctive ringing can be used with casual Contact Center agents so they know the call is ACD related and not a direct dialed call. Different ringing patterns allow agents to distinguish between different queue calls as well. This feature is supported by all queue types. Next, Dialed Number Identification Service, also known as DNIS in the telephony industry. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this topic simply because DNIS is a complex and super customizable service, but I will say that DNIS allows a single queue to be used to distribute calls to agents and also to prioritize these calls so more important calls are distributed first. DNIS also allows calls to be tagged so an agent knows the number the caller dialed. Dialed number identification services are typically seen in third-party answering service call center environments, where the answering service is handling calls from multiple clients and they need the ability to distinguish between different client calls. DNIS is only supported by premium queues, and for more information, please reference the administration guide. Moving along to queue status notification, this premium-only feature provides a mechanism for sending queue statuses to agents based on thresholds, which allows the agent to see a visual indicator of the queue status and modify their call handling behavior appropriately. And the last feature in the advanced configuration section is called disposition codes. Another premium-only feature, call disposition codes give agents the ability to enter disposition codes for calls presented to them by the queue. These codes are used to track marketing promotions, capture the results of a call such as requires follow-up or issue resolved, as well as customer comments and feedback. Available disposition codes are configured by admins and contact center managers from the Global Contact Center Settings section of the Contact Center page. Now we'll cover the routing policy section, starting with force forwarding. A premium-only feature, the force forwarding policy allows calls to be temporarily diverted to a configured destination. This feature is useful in scenarios where there is an emergency or no agents are available to staff the call center. In such a situation, a supervisor can temporarily redirect calls to an alternate destination until the situation is resolved. Force forwarding is considered to be a disaster recovery feature. Holiday service. Supported by premium queues only, holiday service policies allows calls to be processed differently during holiday periods based on a defined holiday schedule. And similar to holiday service, night service allows calls to be processed differently during non-business hours, which is based on a defined business hour schedule instead of a holiday schedule. Night service is also a premium-only feature. Bounce calls. This queue policy handles processing of bounce calls or calls that are being routed to an agent, but the agent isn't answering the call for whatever reason. Both standard and premium queues support this feature. In the event calls are being answered under a specific threshold, the premium-only queued policy feature, Comfort Message Bypass, can be configured to override the comfort message or music set up in announcements if the call is expected to be answered quickly. Overflow queue policy. An overflow call is defined as a call that is hitting a queue where the queue's length or maximum number of queued calls has hit its limit. Another form of an overflow call is a queued call that is not handled by an agent or another queue policy in a specified amount of time. Once a call is classified as overflow, configured overflow treatments are triggered. Overflow is supported by all queue types, including basic, standard, and premium. And last, stranded calls. The stranded calls queue policy processes stranded calls or calls entering a queue that is lacking staffed agents. Once a stranded call is flagged, the queue policy can be configured to leave the call in the queue, play a busy signal, or transfer the call to another destination. If the queue is premium, the queue policy may invoke night services, remove the call from queue, and play ringing or an announcement until the caller releases the call. Stranded calls is supported by standard and premium queues. Now that the initial queue configuration is complete, let's go back to the contact center page where we can quickly cover the global contact center settings so we can dive into the supervisor and agent portion of the walkthrough. Configured by admins and contact center managers, global contact center settings are used by all contact center queues and agents under the account, regardless of physical location. Agent default settings specify how the contact center should handle agents that are on personal calls, have Do Not Disturb activated, or have had X number of consecutive bounce calls. Agent unavailable codes, which only applies to premium queues, allows an agent to specify exactly why he or she is unavailable. For example, lunch, break time, personal call, etc. Admins and contact center managers configure these codes from here. And remember the call disposition codes from the advanced section of queued configuration? This is where the admin enters the codes into the contact center to be used by the agents. Contact center routing policies specify how queues route calls by priority based on longest wait time or a queue's specific priority number. And please disregard the reporting section below, as it is beyond the scope of this tutorial due to its level of customization and complexity. For details regarding the services and features covered in this portion of the Contact Center overview and tutorial, please reference the Contact Center Administration Guide.
To learn more about this or other products or services, please call us or visit us at logix.com.